Hello and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Is Zach Rector right about the payment rails for all the money? Okay, so got this video here and it's Zach Rector basically reacting to Mike Novogratz, who's talking about the payment rails in regards to all the money, but there is just a part of this that I do want to address. But there's a few things that Zach Rector has made here in regards to why he thinks, the XRP is going to be doing well in the very near future. And so I thought I would address this and, as always, add my little 2 cents in. So let's just get straight into this. So first things first, he's talking about the Bitcoin ETF. He's basically saying that the SEC are now actually having meetings with like BlackRock and Grayscale, etc. Like they're actively having discussions now in regards to how they can get these applications approved. So he's basically saying that the Bitcoin ETF is inevitable, which I agree with completely. I think at this point, the SEC are very aware of the situation. I think they've tried to stagnate it as much as possible, and I think they're realizing that the walls are closing in on them. And so they're basically now just doing what they have to do, because I think they understand that they can't keep going like this. I mean, Grayscale actually won a lawsuit against the SEC because they were basically, trying their best to drag their heels and keep denying Grayscale, but they wasn't giving them any type of way forward, right? They kept just denying their applications. But then Grayscale was saying, well, how do we change this if you're not actually giving us any way forward? You're just denying us and not telling us what we need to do to turn things round. So again, I think with them losing the Ripple lawsuit and also the Grayscale lawsuit, along with the Coinbase lawsuit, they haven't lost it, but it's not really looking good for them. Like, they've had a real bad time. And to be honest with you, rightfully so, because at the end of the day, they have been on the wrong side of the law. They have been very corrupt. They have been very shady. So at the end of the day, all we're seeing is that the law is being upheld. So I do agree. I think it's looking like the Bitcoin ETF is going to get approved probably as soon as January. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. If not, then I think it's up to like March after that, the next one. But we'll see. But I do think one of them is going to get approved, and I think that will start the ball rolling in regards to the next bull run, in my personal opinion. So then we've got Mike Novogratz talking about he was wrong about Ripple and XRP. Well. Talk about stating the obvious. Anyway, Mike Novogratz was someone who was very much against XRP. If I remember rightly, is Mike Novogratz the guy who had the Luna tattoo on his arm? And he was really bullish about Luna. So that obviously aged horribly. And now he's obviously realizing how wrong he's been. And now he's talking about how he was wrong about Ripple and XRP. But the one thing I will say here, I can always respect when people can admit that they're wrong. I think that's what it's about. Like, when you can at least admit that you're wrong, it's hard to really still hold a grudge, because at least you're being honest and have enough integrity to actually admit that you're wrong. So I can only respect that, to be honest. It's good to actually see him openly admitting that, because there's plenty of people out there who get proven wrong about Ripple and XRP time and time again, and then they just go quiet, right? Like, they just don't want to talk about it even though they've been proven wrong. They just don't want to admit to it. So at least he's doing that. So then he's talking about how Mike Novogratz has basically mentioned that XRP is trying to build the rails for all the money between banks. And this is the thing that obviously Zach has built the video on. And he's saying how basically, people have got at him for saying all the money, that kind of stuff, how it's not a word that should be being used. And, there's a lot of people who get frustrated when that word is thrown around, all the money, with XRP. The one thing that I will just say in regards to that, yes, Mike Novogratz did mention all the money in terms of the rails that they're trying to lay for banks. He did say all the money. But if you listen to what he said, it was very specific. Like, he said they're trying to build the rails for all the money between banks. And I think the thing that a lot of people get misconstrued when they talk about all the money, they literally say all the money as in all the money in the world. Like, some people are trying to say that they're going to put all the world's debt onto the XRP ledger. And that's the thing when I think people get a bit like, where are you going with that kind of talk? Like, that's the thing that I think people look at and think that just doesn't sound right at all. And I personally agree. So yes, Mike Novogratz is talking about all the money, but he's talking about the banking system. And that's what we would expect, because you want XRP to be doing cross-border payments. So obviously that would be the money being facilitated via cross-border payments. So that does make sense. Now, I will just say this again though, it doesn't guarantee that every single bank will use XRP. There will be competition out there. For example, Hedera are now doing a cross-border service as well using stablecoins. So this is another avenue that people can go down. So it doesn't necessarily mean that XRP will get every single bank wanting to work with them, but I do think when it's all said and done, XRP is the obvious choice, if I'll be honest with you. When it comes to cross-border payments, this is what XRP is designed for. This is its speciality. This is its main use case, its main utility. So I do think XRP and Ripple will get the lion's share when it comes to cross-border payments. I just think that's inevitable in my opinion. So although there may be some banks that do choose to go elsewhere, I do think it will be Ripple and XRP that get that kind of action, to be honest with you, that kind of client base. So we've then got how Mike Novogratz has basically said he reckons we'll see in 3 to 5 years who the winner or winners are. And that's as I've just said. I don't think it necessarily has to be just Ripple and XRP. There could be more than one. And yeah, 3 to 5 years, I would say that sounds about right. It could take maybe a little bit longer, but 3 to 5 years to me, I would say in this day and age now, because we are seeing bigger adoption, regulations I think will be coming within the next maybe 2 years possibly. Now this is obviously me speculating. If the SEC have their way, they're going to drag their feet as much as they can. So obviously that could cause problems. But 3 to 5 years sounds to me like you could see who the clear out winner is at that point. I think that's a fair thing to say. And it will be very interesting to see how that pans out. My money is on Ripple and XRP being the primary winner when it comes to cross-border payments. I think that's something that we all know is their main speciality. As I said earlier, I'm not going to keep reiterating that. So I do think Ripple will be one of the safe bets to put your money on in regards to that, in my personal opinion. And then we've got, just moving on, how Zach has just addressed the Polysign issue could be a big opportunity for Ripple, because we already know that Ripple has brought 2 companies recently, one that they backed out of. I think one of them was Metico, and I'm trying to think of what the other one is, and for the life of me, I can't remember right now. But they brought one and then they backed out of it. I don't think that was the Metico one. I think that was a different one. But yes, they've already done this, as we've seen that when, you know, there's companies going into a bit of a situation, Ripple have basically picked them up for pennies on the dollar, right? And so they've obviously just made a very good business decision. And it's obviously expanding their business as well, because it's another company that they can now build back up, and it's now under the Ripple umbrella, right? It'll be a subsidiary of Ripple. So yeah, it could be a massive opportunity for Ripple. And obviously, as I say, that would continue to expand their business and the amount of services that they can provide. So yeah, that would be a huge thing if they were to potentially buy Polysign. Now, the whole thing with Polysign, I'm not going to get too much into it, simply because if I'll be honest, I don't know the full ins and outs of it myself. There's been talks where it's looking like Polysign have had to, it's looking like they're putting up certain things for auction. So it's kind of looking like they're basically in a bad way financially. And I guess maybe before avoiding like bankruptcy or something like that, they're maybe trying to sell off assets and stuff like that to try and keep them afloat, or maybe so they can just wind down the company before they have to like file for bankruptcy or something. I'm not exactly sure of what it is exactly. And a lot of people have said the same thing. We're not exactly sure what is going on. So time will tell as to what the real situation is. But you know, if the company could be saved, that would be great, and it obviously would be great for Ripple, so we'll see about that. Zach also mentioned Ripple being brought out in the future. Yeah, this is definitely a possibility. Do I see it happening right now? No, not really, because at the end of the day, the company is still in its very early stages of development. I think really Ripple have still got a lot to prove at the moment before they're going to get bought, because, you know, while we know what the use case is of XRP and stuff like that, it's not being fully utilized at a mass scale yet for a company to want to be buying them out or anything like that. In my personal opinion, I think Ripple and XRP would have to be adopted on a much bigger scale before they would potentially get bought out. The other thing is, you know, would David Schwartz want the company to be brought out? You know, Brad Garlinghouse, these guys, they might be very fond of the company and want to keep it under their leadership and under their values. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes you can keep the same people on if the company is brought out, so it could be that they are still having an active role in that. But you never know. There's also that side of things where you think everything's great, you sign the deal, and then suddenly, you know, their attitudes change and they're being difficult, and then you start to regret the fact that you've signed the company over because you haven't got as much control as you once had, and, you know, now they're being difficult with you and not playing ball and that kind of stuff and taking away a lot of the authority that you had. So obviously you don't know how that could end up panning out. So would they want to risk that? I don't know. You know, for the right amount of money, maybe it's something that they would be willing to do. But that's something where we can just say time will tell. I don't see that happening anytime soon, personally, in terms of Ripple being brought out. I think we're a long way away from seeing that kind of thing happen. So overall, good video here, to be honest. The payment rails thing, yes, it is a valid point, and yes, it was said. I do just think the way it was said, though, was a lot more specific. It's not as generalized, and I think that's where some of the people take issue with in regards to that slogan. I think a lot of people are using it as like all the money in the world, and I think that's where a lot of people get a bit funny about that, a bit iffy and a bit defensive. But yeah, Mike Novogratz seems to have definitely changed his tune, so it'll be interesting to see if this is something that he potentially invests in now, because he seems very positive about XRP now, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, overall, for the most part, good stuff here from Zach. Generally agree with a good amount of things that he said here. And I think it'll be interesting to see where this whole Bitcoin ETF goes, because I think that is going to be the next driver in the big bull market, so that's definitely a thing to keep our eyes on for now. But what do you guys think? Mike Novogratz mentioning the payment rails for all the money. Do you agree with this? Do you think Mike is now going to be an XRP supporter? Do you think what's being said here is going to be good for XRP's price overall long term? Or do you not agree with this? Is there anything that's been said here in this video that you don't agree with or don't like the sound of? Or do you just not think that this is going to be good for XRP's price long term overall? Let me know your thoughts, guys. I'd be interested to hear. Thank you very much for watching this. If you did like it, please remember to drop a comment, like, and subscribe. But until next time, take care.